Good morning, everybody. Welcome to episode 12 in our What If interview series, where we discuss and share knowledge on customer experience, digital transformation, and how to better serve customers via digital channels. So my name is Tracy Gray. I'm the head of marketing for Mando. If you're not familiar with us, we're a digital agency committed to simplifying digital experiences for everyone. We work within regulated industries with companies like utilities and financial services, focusing on helping your customers to do those things they don't really want to do. So we don't all wake up on a Saturday morning super excited about paying our water bill or submitting an insurance claim. So we make these things easier, giving customers time back to do the more exciting things with their day. So today we're discussing our what if question with our guest, Kevin Smith, Technical Director at Cloud Solutions and App Development Agency Dootrix. So Kevin has a wide range of experience in companies delivering complex software projects into the enterprise, public sector, and scientific and engineering industries. In recent years, Kevin's moved from building quality software to building quality teams who build quality software. So before we get started today, just to let you all know, we've also got my Mando colleague Luke on the call, and Luke's going to be helping out with logistics and monitoring the chat. So if you've got any questions or comments, please be sure just to drop them in the chat window, and Luke will ask them at the end of the discussion. We'll talk for around 20 to 25 minutes, and then we'll move on to any questions or comments towards the end. So welcome, Kevin. If you can, hi Kev, if you can just introduce yourself, just give everybody a bit more information about your background and what you do at Dootrix.
Sure, okay, thanks Tracy. So my name is Kevin Smith and I'm the Technical Director at Dootrix, where we help organisations large and small to innovate and deliver solutions that are built on top of the modern day cloud. So if you like your buzzwords, then cloud native is what we're really talking about here, but we've been doing this way before that became cool, or indeed before that was even really a word to describe it. So I suppose with respect to myself, I originally come from a background in computer science and software engineering. Many moons ago, I was a software developer working on complex software projects. In my early career, I worked for small teams and small organizations, and then sort of later on in much larger teams for larger sort of multinational organizations. And so I've seen the advantages and the disadvantages on both sides of that, really. But that feels like a long time ago now. Since starting Dootrix about a decade ago, I've spent the last 10 years working closely with our customers, trying to really understand their IT challenges and the challenges that sit at the heart of their business, and then help them to understand how technology and the cloud in particular is evolving and how that can radically change the way that we can address those challenges.
That's great, thanks for that, Kevin. Hopefully that just gives everybody a better understanding of kind of where you come from. So great. In your experience working with companies to set themselves up to unlock the potential of their data, what's the kind of usual before state? We just want to set the scene a bit for everybody here. What's the usual before state? So how are companies currently set up to manage their data, and are they managing it well?
Okay, yeah, well, I guess we're all aware now that data has become currency. There's a lot more of it, and we're attributing a lot more value to it. Technology is also moving forward at a breakneck speed, and a lot of organizations that are simply struggling to keep up, let alone think ahead or think strategically. So I think it's fair to say that a lot of organizations are playing catch up, and perhaps only just beginning to think in a more joined up way about their data. So in terms of the before state, to be honest, quite often it's a bit of a mess.
Great, that's a good place to start. So with that in mind, can you give an example of what that would actually look like in a business? Sure.
So I guess the reality is organizations have typically done what they needed to do at the time they needed to do it to solve whatever challenge they had at that time. So let's say I've got a system that deals with my customers and another system that deals with my buildings, and I need to get data out of one of them and into the other one. Okay, so we could build a point-to-point integration that does that. And then maybe we could build a small application on top of that relies on the data from both of those systems. So I end up with a point-to-point integration that's doing some kind of extract, transform, and load, pulling data out of one system, processing it, and then pushing it into another system. That could be quite intensive. That could even have to run overnight. And then on top of that, I've got an application that we've built that's actually pretty fragile because it's relying on data from one of those systems. It's really coming from two systems, and that application is relying on an integration that it knows nothing about. So typically, this is how integrations have been handled in the past. Now, this probably isn't a problem if you only do this once. But what we often find is that that's how it's been going for the last 5 to 10 years. And so you're walking to an organization and find that over that period, over that same time, the data landscape has exploded, and the application landscape has exploded along with it. So we're not talking about one integration anymore. We're talking about hundreds of discrete point-to-point integrations supporting numerous applications that have now become critical to the success of that business. And to put that into sort of a concrete example, one organization we worked with recently, and I must stress this is they're not an exception. This is fairly typical. When we worked with them to map their systems and their applications, we found they had nearly thousands of point-to-point integrations and hundreds of applications that relied on them. Probably 80% of those integrations were doing the same kind of thing with the same kind of data, generating gigabytes of intermediate data that was copied all over the place. They were going through the same extraction process, but all individually, so hundreds of times instead of just once. And running processes overnight that could take longer than 24 hours to complete. So this means that the data was essentially out of date or incomplete before it even hit those applications. So yeah, that's a typical before state really. And that's if you already have a high degree of technical competence. For other organizations, the problems are far more sort of fundamental than that. Their data remains locked away in individual systems and silos. And so they find themselves hamstrung whenever they want to do anything useful or innovative with it. And maybe they want to generate some insights or build a dashboard or perhaps introduce a new system or a new application that needs to work with that data. And they simply can't. So in short, I guess in terms of the before state, what we're talking about is individual silos of data and or some kind of integration spaghetti.
Right, okay, so it definitely sounds like you were saying, a mess. I guess it's really easy to see how those types of situations are so common and have just evolved. There's no kind of major strategy behind how the data's evolved, and I guess it's that type of thing which just gets left behind. Focusing on customer experience and things is obviously a priority, and the data behind it is not, until you really, really need it, like you say.
Exactly. Yeah.
So obviously you guys talk a lot about a modern data strategy and a data integration strategy. Can you just explain, particularly with the context you've just given us about current situation, can you just explain to us what a modern data integration strategy would mean to you guys, and why it's so important for companies to set that out?
Okay, sure. Yeah, so we talk in terms of a modern data integration platform and then the strategy that sits behind that. And I think perhaps let's start with the why. So why is it important to have one? So in our experience, having a modern data platform is a huge enabler of any kind of digital transformation program or digital transformation agenda. Now, it may not be the coolest thing or the shiniest thing, but really it can and it should act as the backbone for your data and your systems and your applications that are going to drive your business. It's the glue that's going to join all those systems together. It should be the gatekeeper that will ensure that your data remains secure. It's a catalogue of where all your data is. and should be the mechanism by which your data is made available to all of your third parties, whether that's applications or other systems or machine learning algorithms. So it's a single point for access and control, if you like. If you get your data platform and your data strategy right, everything else is just a lot easier. So your solutions will be more secure, they're going to be more traceable, they're going to be more scalable, and just as importantly, it's going to unlock vast potential in the way that you can innovate with that data and move forward and develop new solutions with far greater levels of agility. So as an enabler of digital transformation, a modern data platform, in my opinion, is key. But look, it's also important because it just makes good sense. So we need to move away from a situation where we're responding ad hoc and in reactive ways that we often do when we face a new business challenge. We need to move towards a proactive and a systematic stance. And if you build systems and processes that enforce good behavior, and if you develop frameworks from within which to operate, you're going to be in a far better place. By systemizing your approach to data and putting in patterns and practices that ensure uniformity in the way that you deal with that data, that's necessary. If you don't have that, then what you're really doing is you're just making it up as you go along. So to try and sum all that up, it's important because it prevents the business from simply reacting to problems and fudging the solution. It's important because it enables repeatable and dependable results. It's important because it defines a process by which you can achieve those results. And it's important because it unblocks and accelerates ongoing digital transformation.
So, yeah, to sum you up, I guess it's not glamorous at all, but it's just fundamental to everything else that comes after it. All the digital transformation aspects that come after it are made a lot easier by having this data integration strategy up front. Would that
Absolutely.
be fair to say?
Yeah, absolutely.
That's great, thank you. Why do you think companies are so behind on this, kind of the best practice on this though? Why do you think it kind of gets forgotten about?
I think they're missing. I think really it's because they just haven't had the time to think about it. It's not top of their agenda. It's the other shiny things that grab their attention, and perhaps they don't understand some of the advances that have happened over the last few years to make this all a lot easier, and they don't understand what kind of tools and platforms are out there to help them.
And I guess also don't understand how everything else is going to be made so much easier. All the shiny things are going to be made easier by getting this in place in the beginning.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard work. It's the groundwork that you've got to do, but it's important groundwork.
Absolutely. Definitely sounds like it. So that all sounds great. But from a practical perspective, what would you recommend for companies to get started? How should they get started? Because it sounds like it could be a big task, but where to start?
Yeah, I guess, how you tackle it and what you end up with is going to vary from organisation to organisation. And I can talk about our approach, and it's not the only approach by any means, but we think it's a good one. And our approach has been to use the fabric of the cloud itself, and the many services that it brings to bear to create an integration platform and an integration strategy that's cloud native and that sits in the same ecosystem as all your other modern cloud infrastructure. And there are several key advantages to this. I guess, you're probably already invested in a cloud. So you're probably already using something like Active Directory for identity management. You're probably already using some kind of cloud productivity tools like Office. And you've probably already got a strategy around, where your virtual machines sit or where your storage is going to going to exist, and that's probably already tied to a cloud. So you're probably already using it, but there's a wealth of other tech in there too. So why would you ignore that and introduce more friction or another tool or another billing entity to try and solve that integration problem when you probably already have all the parts right there, just waiting to be used. If you Google something like iPaaS, so integration platform as a service, you'll see a bunch of different vendors and contenders in that space, and they may well have something or some of what you need, but I think that before you go straight to the Gartner quadrant and pick one of those things off the shelf, you need to take the time to appreciate what you already have available in the platform that you're already invested in. Because the truth is, most people simply don't know what's sitting there right under their noses, and quite often what's there is actually more capable and more complete than some of the off-the-shelf solutions.
Right.
And sorry, go on.
No, go on. Keep going.
I was just going to say, I think the cloud is fascinating. It's really interesting because it's been evolving. It has evolved and it is evolving, and it's been doing that for a number of years now. And I've talked in terms of the fabric of the cloud and building solutions on top of that, but I want to try and explain a bit about what I mean by that. So I don't know if there are any kind of Apple enthusiasts out there, or you've been watching the tech news this week, but Apple have released this new M1 chip. It's Apple Silicon, and they've seen these huge efficiencies, 3.5 times faster than the latest Intel chips. Okay, and what they've done is they've built a system on a chip. So whereas you used to have your processor was one chip, your I/O was another chip, your security was done on another piece of silicon, and your memory again was somewhere else on the motherboard. Apple have combined all of that into a single chip, and they've got vast efficiencies through doing that. Now it's a little bit like if you imagine you might have a database on one system, you might have an API a software or middleware tool, you might have an identity management system, you might have another third party that you use for secure storage, or you might have another tool that you use for analytics and reporting. And I think for us, and what I find really exciting about the cloud is it's like having our own software version of a system on the chip. We can have all of those things, but they're all running on the fabric of the cloud itself. And if we understand how to use them properly, and we understand the services that it makes available, that can drive huge efficiencies.
Okay, so you're talking about services there. Can you just describe what types of services you're specifically talking about in a bit more detail?
Sure. So it's a combination actually of services and patterns. And in terms of the services and patterns, I'm going to talk about some specific Azure services because I know them best, but in the names of impartiality, I should state that other cloud platforms do exist, and they have like-for-like offerings. So in terms of a modern data platform, some of the services that you might make use of would include things like, and I've mentioned it already actually, Azure Active Directory. You're probably already using it. You'd use that for identity management, role-based access control, security policies and group policies. API management would be another service that would be core to that platform, where that would be responsible for API definition, bandwidth and rate limiting, and again, authentication and access control around who can use those APIs. And you've got stuff like Cosmos DB, which is a super scalable, fast database that you might want to use as an intermediate data store. You've got log analytics for logging usage and error states and for traceability purposes. And then you've got the cooler stuff, I suppose, like Data Factory, which is a WYSIWYG service that lets you create integrations for a whole bunch of common scenarios in a low code or no code manner. So you can pull data out of one particular type of data source, do some transformation, and then inject it into another system. And you can do that all through a low code or no code interface. And on the same kind of thread as that, you've got logic apps, which provides a workflow engine that will allow you to do some of the heavy lifting, and you can develop integrations, that are far less painful. You've got data catalog. I'll stop in a minute. You've got a data catalog for documenting, searching your data. You've got data lake for storing huge amounts of data in its raw form and enabling things like data science and experimentation on that data to pull out insights that can radically change the way you might go about a process. You've got Power BI for reporting. You've got Key Vault for security and privacy, and there are loads of things, but those are some of the key ones, I suppose. And those are the ones that you can pull together and create a modern data platform out of them that will ultimately act as a gateway to your data estate and a means by which you can create integrations. And then I guess, in terms of those patterns I talked about, you also need to think about the types of data that you're dealing with. So your systems will be making data available or consuming data in a number of discrete ways and normally similar ways. So that might be directly from an SQL database. It might be from FTP files that are coming in to an FTP server. It might be through REST APIs where you're consuming JSON data, or it might be from event queues where small kind of packages of data are being continuously delivered in a more real-time way. And so there are particular patterns that you can recognize and create templated solutions to speed up your integration process. So what we've done is we've developed an integration platform by stitching all of this stuff together in a meaningful way. And we've got automated deployment scripts to roll that out onto your cloud as a single platform. And that's what we've done. It's generally how we would approach things. But we believe it's often the best approach a lot of the time, in a lot of different scenarios. So I guess basically we're following Apple. In a way, it's our version of system on a chip, except it's a platform on a cloud.
So everything all in one place, data all in one place, able to use all those specific services, which I guess is at an advantage of having things on the cloud rather than on-prem. You've got everything all in one place.
Yeah, I mean, the reality is you're not going to switch from on-prem to cloud overnight. So a lot of this is about liberating that data from on-prem into an intermediate state in the cloud where you can access it more easily.
Absolutely. And can you just cover off, because you've kind of hinted at things but haven't really covered it yet, around it's kind of obvious that having data all in one place makes it more secure, etc. Can you just cover off a bit about kind of data governance and security and how it makes it easier for privacy, to adhere to privacy regulations, etc., rather than having data all over the place?
Yeah, well, I mean, it kind of speaks for itself, doesn't it? So if you can create a single point of control via which people are having access to your data, those third parties, be them people or applications or whatever, are going to and accessing that data. If you can build authentication around that, and if you can monitor who's accessing that, then that's far better for governance and data security when compared to the normal state. And the normal state can often be people bring in hard drives, copy vast amounts of data off of one place, move it to another place, forget that it's on that disk. Don't pay any attention to the fact that this particular type of data they're copying around has significant GDPR implications.
Yeah.
So having that single gated access and a strategy around that that forces people in a nice way to go through that gate will go a long way to solving a lot of basic data governance and security issues.
That's great, thank you. That makes it really clear for everyone. So just want to spend a couple of minutes talking about kind of the future. So this all sounds great. But what's the future for data storage and integration, and what are some of the trends that you've been seeing that you would expect to continue?
Okay. It's some of the trends that we've seen, over and over again, is certainly one of them would be a move to keeping everything. So lots more people are becoming interested in data lakes. Data scientists and the whole kind of birth of machine learning and AI. Those people, they want access to the raw data, not data that's been processed or normalized or kind of decimated before it gets stored anywhere. So they want the access to the raw data, and that means there's a big drive to start keeping everything. So that's definitely a key trend. I'd say another trend along similar lines would be something like deep insights. So, okay, it's great if you can, if you're technically savvy enough, or you can afford to have teams of data scientists that are mining your data to kind of pull out intelligence, but not everyone can do that. So I think we're starting to see now a rise in automated tools that will pull insights out of your data for you by doing automatic machine learning. And we've started to see some of that coming through now. I think alongside that, there's going to be a much greater focus on privacy. It's becoming a hot topic, and we're going to see much more in the way of privacy sensitive storage, and a lot more people needing solutions that take privacy a lot more seriously than perhaps they do today. And then again, as I've kind of, I guess, been banging on about, it's the cloud. The cloud is the enabler, and the reality is most people are still trying to move from on-prem to cloud or in some kind of hybrid state. But I think we will see people start to consolidate their services onto a cloud platform.
That's great, thank you. Okay, so Luke, I'm just going to bring you on screen. I think, have we got one or two questions go through with Kevin?
We do indeed. Just one question that I've got here is, does hosting data in one single solution minimize security risks, or is it placing all your eggs in one basket?
Okay. Well, I guess it's you can answer that by thinking of the reverse question, can't you? So if you've got all of your data, if all of your data is spread across lots of different systems, then how do you police that? You're going to need lots of different policemen, to police all of those different systems. And it's going to be far harder to understand what is where, what kind of state of up-to-datedness that data is in, how kind of new and relevant is it. And by moving it to, it's not even about moving it to a central place, it's about creating a central place through which it is accessed. So as I said before, you don't have to liberate all of your data from on-prem to cloud straight away. It's about having that gateway in the cloud as the access point to all of that data. So at that gateway, you can put in the security checks, you can put in the logging and the analytics, and the access control.
Great, thank you. And we've just got maybe 1 or 2 minutes left. I thought in those couple of minutes, Kevin, are you able to outline kind of 3 key takeaways, 3 simple takeaways for listeners to kind of take away and start tomorrow?
Yes, okay. All right, I'll try and do this quickly then. Number 1, don't ignore your problems, because they're not going to go away. They're just going to get worse. The fast-paced nature of technology is going to lend itself naturally to reacting without thinking it through, and creating spaghetti solutions. Don't do that. It's going to make it hard to scale and hard to maintain. Don't ignore your problems, do something about them. Number 2, if you're serious about digital transformation and innovation, then stop doing things the same way that you've always done them. The cloud can be a complete game changer here. You need to take the time to explore it properly. It done right, it's going to speed things up and speed your development and roll-up times up by a factor of 3 or 4. So stop doing things the way you've always done them. Number 3, don't run before you can walk. So it's tempting. You want to build this shiny new app. or the digital transformation, blah, but take the time to put the strategy and the platform in place, and put the backbone in place first.
That's brilliant. There's some absolute nuggets of gold in there. Thank you, Kevin. Right, well, that brings us to the end of the interview. So I just want to say thank you, Luke, for coming on and asking those questions, and huge thanks to Kevin for joining us today. It's been a really interesting conversation. Certainly simplified a lot of things that I thought were super complicated. You've kind of laid it out really easily for everyone to understand. So that's really great. Thank you for that, Kevin. And yeah, thanks to all our listeners. And we'll leave you, Kevin.
Thanks, Tracy.
That's great.
Cheers.
Thanks, everybody. Bye.